Hello everyone and welcome back to the Ryan Retro channel. In today's video we're going to be testing Turnip drivers on my two Odin 3 handhelds. This video is really exciting for me because I made a video a few months ago saying how I don't really recommend buying an Odin 3 because it doesn't have Turnip driver support. Now, a few months later, finally we are getting the very beginnings of Turnip driver support. So that's what we're going to test in this video. So today we're going to see how helpful Turnip drivers are and also what state they are in. As they're still completely brand new, they are by no means at a finished state yet. So we're going to see in the preliminary state they're in right now, how good they are, if they're worth installing, and if we're getting to a point where I can start to recommend the Odin 3 for secret console gaming. So I have my two Odin 3 devices here. The top one is my Pro model and the bottom one is the Max model. But we're not comparing performance today. We're not comparing frames per second. We're only going to be looking at if things show up on the screen in the way they should, or if there's any missing textures. Those are the kind of things that can be fixed with Turnip drivers. Things that aren't really displaying correctly can be fixed and display correctly with the Turnip driver. So my Pro version at the top here is going to be set up completely default with the system GPU driver and everything left exactly as it is when you first install Eden. My Max version down here is also going to be completely default, but with one key change. We are going to be using the new A8XX MRV21 Turnip driver. Now, at the time of filming, this driver only released about 2 hours ago. We're at the point now where we get a new Turnip driver pretty much every day, even more than one a day in some cases. At the time of filming, this one released 2 hours ago, and the one before that released 13 hours ago. So we're actually getting like 2 a day at the moment. So this is the latest one at the time of filming, but when you watch this, there's a very good chance there's a newer one than this out already. This is one of the reasons I've not made a video about this yet, because they keep releasing at such a crazy rate. But I felt the time was right to see how things are going, and I can always make a new updated video in the near future. So let's begin with the version at the top running the default drivers and the version at the bottom running a Turnip driver. Let's see what the differences are in game. Now, I'm not going to play every game in my library because some of them already work fine without Turnip drivers. We're going to focus on the games that have had issues in the past without Turnip drivers, and we're going to see if the Turnip driver can fix those issues. So let's begin with Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Now, if you've got very sharp, keen eyes, you might notice a bit of a problem with the Turnip driver device here. And this is actually a really common problem. So much so that you've probably seen this on Reddit or other places. I wanted to show you this first and how to fix it. So what we need to do is exit the game we're in right now, come to the settings of Eden. Let's go to Advanced Settings, Graphics, and then we're going to change resolution here. I believe we can change this to almost anything, but to keep things nice and simple, we're going to change it to 1.25 times resolution. And as you can see, that problem is now completely fixed. I could go back into my Pro version that's not using Turnip drivers and also change this to 1.25 times resolution as well, but it wouldn't fix or break anything over here. It would have no effect apart from maybe lowering the frame per second a little bit, and we're not doing a frame per second comparison anyway. We're only looking at textures. So I'm going to keep this version just completely default. For the Turnip driver, at the time of filming, you're going to want to change the resolution so you don't get those weird texture glitches. Here in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, you'll see on the version at the top without Turnip drivers, we get these occasional flickering textures that are not present in the Turnip version. This game, apart from when first loading in, after it builds shaders, seems to be pretty fine. So we're going to move on to other games now that I know have a lot more problems. The next game we're going to look at is Fire Emblem Three Houses. So there's some flickering I can see up here that's not present on the Turnip driver version. As I watch through the cutscenes here in the beginning of the game, there's constantly little bits of flickering here and there in jackets and trousers and faces and various places that are just not present at all with the Turnip driver. It's completely fixed here. Look at this shadow just going crazy on this guy's crotch. Here it's completely fine. I mean, it looks like he's having more fun over here, but this is how it should be. Once again, shadows are just going crazy here. You can see how the Turnip driver completely stabilizes this. After saving progress, the stock driver version crashed back to the home screen of Eden. With the Turnip driver, we are now into the game. Well, the game just will not even open now. Every time I try to open it, it just crashes back to the main menu. So it's completely broken here on the stock driver version. Here on the Turnip driver version, it seems to be running perfectly fine. So this really shows why this Turnip driver is important. Let's get into some more examples. Our next game is going to be Hades. So once again, the stock driver has a lot of light flickering happening. If you look around the screen, especially in the dark areas, there's lots of flickering happening. Here on the Turnip driver version, it is fixed. There's no flickering happening there. As we run around and slash our sword around, again, there's just textures flickering and flashing that are not nice to look at. Here on the Turnip driver version, that doesn't happen. Everything renders just how it should. It's a much nicer experience once again. Our next game is Metroid Prime Remastered. This is one that I showed in a previous shootout video and is quite funny without elite drivers. So as these both load in, right now they look exactly the same, but pretty soon they're going to look quite different. Oh, unfortunately, the stock driver just crashed once again. That's a real shame because I want to show you how it looks. So let's try and open that again. Unfortunately, it's just crashing again. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to clear the cache, but I'm going to use an Adreno driver, the same as the stock driver. So I'm going to download a GameHub Adreno driver here, not a Turnip driver. It may help with stability, but still won't fix the textures. These are the drivers we've had available to us for the past few months before Turnip drivers became available. So it's still a stock Adreno driver, and this is a Turnip driver. Now let's see how different they look and why Turnip drivers are important. Unfortunately, it just crashed again. It's a real shame. I'll see if I can dig out my previous footage of this game, how it looks without Turnip drivers on the Elite when it works, because it is absolutely bananas. Unfortunately today, it just will not work, which again shows the stability we can get with Turnip drivers. So as you can see last time, this is how it looked without Turnip drivers on the Snapdragon 8 Elite. Everything was completely broken. And here is how things look with the Turnip drivers on the Snapdragon 8 Elite chip. As you can see, everything is displaying perfectly and it looks fantastic. No issues getting a smooth 60 frames per second with the power of the Elite chip here, and everything displaying correctly. Our next game to test that I heard doesn't work well without Turnip drivers is Mortal Kombat 1. Interestingly, this game seems to not be working well on anything, because on the device without Turnip drivers, it's once again crashed back to the menu. I'm not able to open the game. And with Turnip drivers, it also froze. This is my second time trying to load it, and it seems quite stuttery. And textures do seem to be glitching out as well. Now, it hasn't crashed me back to the main screen like it did with the default stock driver. I am into the game, but it doesn't seem to be working very well. As I said earlier in the video, these drivers are very new, so they're not going to be anywhere near perfect yet. So we're into the game, and it does seem to be pretty laggy. Not running particularly well, but it is running, which is much better than we can say for the stock driver, which just constantly crashes back to the main screen. So we do have some gameplay happening here. It's been a very long time since I've played Mortal Kombat, so not really sure what any of the buttons do, but my teammate seems to be throwing rockets, which helps. Wait a minute, that's not my teammate. We could definitely get some further improvement here. We're dropping frames every now and again. But as the shaders compile, it does seem to be getting much closer to a locked 60 frames per second. And being a fighting game, I think once we've seen all the moves once or twice and we've compiled that shader cache, I think we will get a pretty solid performance here. So yes, while not perfect yet, not too bad at all. Our next game to try that I've heard has some problems without Turnip drivers is Ori and the Blind Forest. So here we are into the main screen. Now the version with the Turnip driver did load a lot faster than this one, but this is also a slightly more powerful device as well. So I'm not really worrying about those kind of things today. We're just looking at textures and crashing and that kind of stuff. So let's jump into the game and see if we see any differences. Oh, right away, there is some bad flickering happening up here. Look at this. Oh my. Oh my. Yes, there is a very clear difference here between the stock driver and Turnip drivers. But let's see how it goes once we actually get into the main gameplay. A lot of freezing happening here. A lot of freezing and shaking and flickering. And then it goes absolutely berserk and then suddenly works again. Yeah, this is not in any way of a playable state. Let's see how it is with the Turnip driver. Seems to be behaving pretty normally. Seems to be how you'd expect it to look. This seems to be a game that has become playable thanks to the Turnip driver. Let's just once again check this, and yeah, this is not in any way playable. So Ori and the Blind Forest, saved by Turnip drivers here. The next game we're going to look at is Pokémon Scarlet. Pokemon games generally have problems on the Elite chip without Turnip drivers. I've shown in numerous videos before, like Pokemon Arceus and various other Pokemon games, just don't show textures. You can't see the Pokemon without Turnip drivers. So let's see how this goes today. As you can see here, a big difference between my character's appearance. A quite empty classroom here. I guess it was COVID time. And as this plays through, you're just going to see why Turnip drivers are important for games like this, because without Turnip drivers, you just end up with either glitched textures, or in the case of a lot of Pokemon games, just no textures at all. Look at the differences here. This is the same scene. So I'm really happy to show you that Pokemon games are finally going to be playable on the Elite chip now that we have these Turnip drivers. Before, you were looking at something like this where you just don't see anything. It's an absolute mess. It's like the non-Turnip driver version is zoomed in 1,000 times into this guy's hair. So this pretty much sums up why in my previous Odin 3 video I said I cannot recommend the Odin 3 if you're interested in Switch gaming. Because at that time when I made that video, this was Switch gaming on the Odin 3. I knew it because my phone has the same processor, and I just can't recommend this to anybody. Now, as you can see here, it's working well. So I'm happy to say that from now, I can gladly recommend the Odin 3 for Switch gaming. The only thing we need to be careful about is these are brand new drivers, so they may not be super stable. If you play this for a long time, you might get crashing or glitching or any other kind of problems. We just don't know yet because people haven't put the time into testing it. But I am very hopeful about this, and this really fills me with joy. So I think we get the idea with this one. This is exactly the same scene once again, and this is how it appears with Turnip drivers and without Turnip drivers. And lots of Pokemon games render that exact same way. It's not just Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, it's numerous Pokemon games. So let's now move on to a different kind of game, one that I've shown on my channel quite a few times before in my shootout videos, and that is The Witcher 3. As we get into the game here, you're going to see, once again, a pretty obvious difference between the textures of the two. This is a game that ran pretty well without Turnip drivers when it came to frame rates, but unfortunately, once again, we had problems with the textures. And oh, this is something interesting. Here you can see the version without Turnip drivers has all those kind of texture glitching we've become used to on the Snapdragon 8 Elite without Turnip drivers. But take a look at this. What is going on here? Now, I actually tested this a couple of days ago with an older version of the Turnip drivers, and it did not look like this. This is why we still have to be careful with these early builds of Turnip drivers. They are not perfect, because this is even worse than not having Turnip drivers. What I'm going to do, just for this one game, is I'm going to revert back to a driver I used a couple of days ago, another Turnip driver, because that did display things correctly. Now, as you can see with this slightly older Turnip driver from a few days ago, the textures are pretty much perfect now. Everything looks great, there's no flickering. We're galloping around on our horse very nicely. Everything looks absolutely beautiful. There's no texture flickering like here. And if we compare the textures side by side, there just is no comparison. Compared to how lovely everything looks with the Turnip driver here, this is just a mess, and I'm just a floating head. I think this really sums up the difference of Turnip drivers and no Turnip drivers. So this is why I couldn't recommend the Odin 3 to people who are interested in Switch emulation back all those months ago when I made that video about it. But now we have Turnip driver support, and while it's not perfect and we still need to experiment with a couple of different ones, you can see the drastic difference it makes. And I now can recommend the Odin 3 to people interested in Switch emulation. We finally have fixed textures and good performance. I will continue to update you guys when new drivers come out. We'll look more at performance in future videos to see if we can find the best driver for the best performance and compatibility. These drivers are dropping daily, so there's bound to be lots of improvements coming our way. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm very close to 40,000, would love to hit that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm sure very soon I'll be saying hello again.